Hi everyone, my name is Chirag and you are watching Data Decoded, where we break down every concept of data engineering into what, when, why, and how. So let's get started. Our today's topic of discussion is slowly changing dimensions. So basically, slowly changing dimensions are techniques used to track changes in dimension tables. So whenever there is a change in dimension table, we want to track the history of it, or either we want to override it, or how do we want to maintain the history. So these are the techniques when we want to manage the history of the records in dimension tables. Why do we need SCD? Basically, when we want to analyze performance over time rather than just as is. Let's say you want to know if what was the position of that particular sales guy when he made that particular sale, right? Or what was the age, or like what was the some other attributes of that particular patient when he was first diagnosed with some particular disease. This is basically the use case of slowly changing dimensions. We have multiple types of SCD. As I said, these are techniques. Most oftenly we used SCD Type 1 and SCD Type 2 in our data engineering scenarios. SCD Type 1 is basically when we do not keep any history, we just update the old records with the new records. And let's say if you see the example here, this Amit guy was in Delhi, now he has moved to Bangalore. So SCD1 will just overwrite Delhi to Bangalore and no history will be preserved. But in SCD Type 2, to maintain the history, we add one more record which says Amit is in Bangalore now and he has started living in Bangalore at current date or today's date, and the record which says Amit was in Delhi will be expired by making its end date to be the current date and changing its active status to no or null. That's how SCD Type 2 works. So let's say on day 1 we had 2 records in our source. On target table, these 2 records will be just directly loaded via a bulk load, and the target table will look same exactly as source on day 1. But on day 2, let's say in our source we have John Doe now moved to Delhi, and we have a new guy named Chirag who also lives in Delhi. So as the SCD1 suggests, our target table will now say John Doe is now in Delhi and Chirag is our new guy who also lives in Delhi, right? Basically similar to source. Also, let's say on day 3 we do not receive this Chain Smith guy in our source, right? So on day 3 we might, our target table can look like this or can look like this as well, depending on our logic. Do we want to keep this row or do we want to remove this row? But both can happen, right? This is our SCD Type 1. In SCD Type 2, let's say on day 1 we had same rows at our source, and in target table again there will be a bulk load which will load all these records, plus we will have few more columns. First one is start date, end date is current or maybe active. So on day 1 our start date will be D1, our end date will be null, and is current will be 1. These records have just arrived. Their start date is day 1 and their end date will be null because they are, or maybe some default value. On day 2 again this John Doe guy has moved to Delhi, and we have a third guy named Chirag who also lives in Delhi. Okay. So on day 2, our target table will have this record, but his end date will be now set it to D2 because the row is now expired, and we will now set its current state to 0, right? Because now the record has expired. And we will have one more record. Our first step was expire records. Then our second step will be insert changed records. Now we will have one more row named John Doe. His start date will be D2, end date will be null because he moved to Delhi on day 2 and will now set to active. Then Jane Smith hasn't moved anywhere, so he will remain same. Also Chirag is the new guy, so he will be directly inserted. Named start date will be D2, end date will be null, and current state to active. So that's how your SCD type 2 will work. You will first expire the record, then insert the changed record, or insert the new records. Okay. So to implement this on code, we basically use merge statements or merge logic, which contains two parts: when matched and when not matched. So basically, we mostly write filters on basic of when matched and when not matched. So in SCD type 1, when the customer IDs match and the attributes have changed, then we update the records, and when not matched, then simply just insert the records. Okay. Again, here, when matched between source and target, we see if there is any change, and if there is any change, we override that change, and if not, when not matched, then we insert the new record. Let me show you the code. Yeah, we have a source table, which on today's latest day, it has 3 records, in which John Doe has moved to New York and Bob Johnson is the new guy. And this was our target table on day 1. So now after implementing the merge logic, where when the customer ID between source and target is being matched, we are checking if any of these particular attributes have changed or not equal between source and target. We will update the records, and when not matched, we will just directly insert the records from the source. Here now, one thing that can be a bit tricky is, here you are seeing 4 attributes which needs to be checked for override logic, right? But let's say you have a very big table which can have hundreds of records or hundreds of attributes that need to be tracked for changes, right? For those cases, what we can do, we can add one more column, that is hash key. We can generate hash key on the basis of those all attributes, hundreds or maybe 500 attributes, and then see if that particular hash key changes. Like, the hash key will be changed if any of the underlying attributes change. If the hash key is different or hash key is not matching, then we will just directly say, like, we will just directly go for update. Then again, when hash key will not match, then insert, right? Then for SCD type 2, we have written an expire logic to see which row. We are basically marking the rows in source table by saying operation type expire. So whenever not matched, like when the current status is active and customer ID is active and the attributes are not matching, then we have to expire the record, right? We have to expire this particular record, so that this record will be marked as expire. Then we will have insert changed. Also we have insert new, right? Then these three will act as source. Now all the source rows has now a new attribute named operation type, which says expire, insert change, or insert new, like what action needs to be done on particular records. So in our SCD logic, when customer ID is matching and operation type is expire, we are just expiring that record by changing its end date to current date and setting its current value to false. And when not matched, we are inserting both the records by taking the version from source, also date to be a default date or maybe null. So that's how our output will look like. So this code has been written using AI, right? And that's how I think most of the people do it, right? Like nobody's writing codes, right? So what's most important thing is to understand the logic behind SCD1 and SCD2. There can be multiple variations also. So let me give you one more example. So let's say on day 6 at source, this Chirag guy did not arrive, might have been deleted from the files or somewhere. This Chirag guy has not arrived from the source on day 6. For those cases, like we cannot just directly say now Chirag won't come at day 7 or day 8 or maybe day 10. He can or he cannot, but we cannot expire the records for Chirag directly. So what we call it is soft deletion. And to do that, on day 6, our target will look like this. So we will have one more column, deleted timestamp, and on day 6, this Chirag guy will be marked as deleted. We haven't set its end date to any date. It's still null because it is still active but deleted, right? So it is active in our system but deleted, right? So he isn't still daily but has been deleted from the source. We don't know anything happened with Chirag, right? For rest of them, it will be null because both of them are still there. Then let's say on day 8, Chirag is back. Might be source has been fixed, right? Then all the records will still look same, but we will now set his end date to be D8 and current to 0, and we will add one more row which says is deleted null because now he is back, and start date to be D8 and end date to be null. And now some of you might be asking why we have set it to D8, or we could have just directly changed D6 to null or kept it from day 2. But as I said, we are tracking the history of any change that has been happening to particular attribute. We have written this logic. So this logic can change as per the requirements, but these are the most use cases which we follow, and we can just ask our AI to add soft delete logic and explain it a bit, and it will write it directly. Yeah, that's it for today. In today's session, we learned about SCD, what is SCD, why should we use SCD, when to use SCD, and types of SCD, SCD type 1, SCD type 2, implementation of SCD, the logic behind SCDs. That's it for today's session, and keep watching the videos. Have a good day. Bye bye.